I wanted to ask you both, as former players, and Ali as well as a former manager, where you stand on this. Because this morning, Troy, when you and I were talking, you were saying, actually, it takes a lot for a player to go off. And the reason we are discussing this is because David Luiz stayed on until half-time. His head was wrapped up. The blood was coming through that bandaging. He eventually came off, and post-match, the discussion was actually, look, he passed the protocols. I asked you about this morning, Troy, and you basically said, look, I would have stayed on. I want to stay on playing football. And to me, what that said to me was more like, well, then that decision needs to be taken away from the players. Tell us about the protocols.
You say it needs to be taken away from the players, but Ali, help me out. How many things are already being taken away from the players? You already told how much you can run, how much you can't, sports scientists. At some point, there has to be an element of trust between player and doctor. You do have all the protocols in place. At the start of pre-season, you'll come in and they'll do, as well as testing your heart and all these different things, you do concussion tests, which is obviously a variation of questions which will be repeated back. Some are very simple, that you should normally pass and probably get 5 out of 5 in. They'll do those little tests on there. Some are simple as like, who are we playing today? What's the score? What day is it? Things like that you should pretty know instantaneously. And because when you're obviously concussed, that will blur your memory and you might get it wrong. That's when they'll go, right, there's certain things we need to start checking now. What I was saying in regards to David Luiz is when you hear the manager come out and say it's just a cut, I'm just talking from experience. I've played in games where I've had to have stitches at half-time and play on. So that's what I'm saying. If he's okay to last that, however long it was, 25, 35 minutes afterwards, you can see visible blood, but you can get that glued or you can get that stitched at half-time, wrap it back up and carry on. So that's what I'm saying. Like that's not dangerous at that point. It's dangerous if he gets whacked again, but that's part and parcel of the game of like what we're doing.
But isn't that what we're trying to avoid, though? By bringing him off, rather than waiting for it to happen again and get to the danger point, isn't this all about prevention so that you don't get to the point where someone is suffering from a concussion?
So that's like saying let's stop slide tackling then.
No, because
there's a risk of an injury, there's a risk of anything.
But the risk is already much higher. Your head's already been split open, the blood is already coming out, your brain has been shook, it's been hit against your skull. Everybody takes a risk when they walk onto the football pitch, but the risk is far greater when you've already just cracked your head open, surely.
So when's the next time, when's suitable to put him back in then?
When he's not got a head that's cut and split open.
That's what I'm saying. So, but he'll have scar tissue, he'll have all these different things afterwards. So is it a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks?
However long they need. If he gets down the line, he turns 50 and he starts getting symptoms that perhaps suggest that he might have trauma from a head butt like that or whatever happened. This is the whole point with concussion tests. Prevent it. This is
the argument. Obviously, you never want to get to a situation where you have a Ryan Mason incident. You never want to get to that. But you do have to look at both sides of the coin and say, like, at what point are we going to stop taking a risk?
What's more important, do you think, though? Having David Luiz play on for the final 35 minutes of a half to only then get subbed off at half-time anyway, or to take him off and sit him down and sit him out for this one? What's more important?
Oh, 100%. In that instance, I think if we would have, I think you'd say it was Chris Sutton and saying if we had concussion ones, I think a manager's mindset, and Ali can speak to this better than me, obviously, a manager's mindset if he had a free substitution would be take him off, no risk at all. But if you got to get to half time, reassess him, because again you've only got 3 subs, so he's thinking if he's all right at half time, I've wasted a sub when we could possibly need to win the game. So if there is that situation where there's a concussion substitute that doesn't impact you, I certainly think you'll see managers start changing the way they approach it.
Ali, what do you think?
Listen, I think we're all in agreement. The most important thing is the welfare of players and the welfare of the individual involved. Now, I've seen it, same as you, Troy. I've come off myself. I've got more scars over in my head probably than most. You get stitched up, you get back on and play. And I wasn't even an aggressive centre forward, so I don't know how many head clashes you've had. You must have had the right few, Troy, to be honest with you. But looking at players, 90% of players will want to stay on, right? and play. So therefore, the decision correctly has to be, in my opinion, has to be taken out their hands initially by a medical man, a doctor. If a doctor comes on and looks at them, and all the protocols are followed, and the checks are made, and the doctor is happy with what he's seeing in terms of a response from the player, then I don't have any problem the player playing on. But you got to remember, Woodsy, the doctor will not take any chances. Absolutely will not take any chances at all. So I am Woodsy, I'm happy. I am happy with the decision being left to, first and foremost, the medical men, once they follow protocol. Now, if the protocol has to change, then that's different, and it goes to another level, then that's interest. But from what I'm seeing just now, I think Arsenal, and looking at the quotes, I didn't see the incident. Arteta's saying the protocol was completely and utterly followed, and I'm comfortable with that, because clearly the most important thing, as I said earlier, is the welfare of the player, and the person looking at him will be the club doctor, the physician, and if he says or she says that they're okay to carry on, then I don't have a problem with carry on.
Am I the only one that thinks that a player who's had his head bandaged up because it's split open and it's bleeding is higher risk than someone that doesn't have a
Well, I think you can get,
especially a centre back.
Yeah, but I think you can get, for example, you can get a graze.
That wasn't a graze though, Ali.
No, I didn't say it was. I didn't for a minute say it was. But I'm saying you're going along the lines, if you get a cut, you've got to come off.
No. I'm going along the lines of he had his head bandaged up.
Well, that's
surely
different. But you said if you see blood and all that stuff, sometimes that can look a lot worse than it is. I've seen people with cuts in their legs with nothing. They've got to come off and get stitched, but it's nothing. And you can get a slight graze in the head, and all of a sudden a little bit of blood. I think this is where it's important that the decision is taken out the individual player, the player's hands, and given to medical men. Now, the most iconic one that we all speak about, and it's been with us for years and years, was my big pal Terry Butcher running about with that England strip, and that obviously took it to an extreme, and I would have to say, looking at the picture, it looked absolutely shocking, but clearly that I didn't think that Terry had thankfully had any concussion. But you don't want to see things like that. Of course you don't. And I think that probably took it to an extreme. But I agree with what you're saying, Laura, because, again, the welfare of the individual is the most important thing. But it's getting the balance.
Let's not get away from, by generalising, I feel like we're getting away from this individual incident where one of these players, who is the other head involved in the collision, has had to go to hospital. Someone's just texted in, Chris in Suffolk just said, Laura, a cut isn't concussion, a completely different injury, no different to heading the ball, just breaks the skin. Chris, we're not talking, stop generalising, stop using the word a cut to generalise. We're talking about an incident where these two players clashed heads to the point where one of them went to hospital, the other one had his head strapped up and then had to come off at half-time because he couldn't head the ball anymore. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, I understand what you guys as players are saying, that every cut and every bruise, and that's not it. This is a player that we've allowed to continue to play on the pitch after having a collision like that. I can't. For wanting a better phrase, I can't get my head around it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think what me and Ali are saying is, you as a player, you know when something's not right. So what I would say is, from watching David Luiz for the next 20 odd minutes afterwards, he never looked shaky on his feet. His legs weren't gone from underneath him. So again, as Ali said, they followed all the protocols in terms of he's ticked every box. Then afterwards, you don't see anything other than blood to suggest he's in a bad way. So what I would say then is, if they've got to half-time and then looked at it, gone, maybe we'll just take him out for precaution, then 100% you're right, do it at the time. There's no need to take that 20, 30-minute risk. But if they've got to him at half-time and he's turned around and gone, I don't fancy it, that's not the right word. But you know what I mean? Like, my head's sore or whatever. I'm just not sure about heading the ball going forward. Then it's a completely different conversation. So I do think there's lessons to be learned within rugby. They have obviously concussion protocol as well. There's always things that we can learn and improve on. But I do worry that we get to a point where what level of severity are we talking about? Do you get what I mean? Because the two players banged heads, but Jimenez might have been more concussed by hitting the ground. You know what I mean? Where do we draw the line of that's the severity that both players have to